Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Baston. Joining me as co-host, Jason Ford. And we want to welcome the president of the Bermuda Football Association, Mr. Mark Wade. Tonight we are going to be discussing the impact in which football has had already and a way forward, hopefully, out of this stoppage of play. As we had a stoppage that ended last season, and we've got a stoppage to not start this season. So, first of all, good evening, Mr. Wade. Good evening, Juggler.
Hey, good evening. Good evening to you guys, and good evening to everybody online.
Yeah. Mr. Wade, yesterday the Bermuda Football Association released a statement. The Executive Council of the Bermuda Football Association have met with the club presidents and secretaries following the postponement of the Charity Cup and Dudley Eve matches on Sunday, September 5th and Monday, September 6th, and it had been decided that the entire Dudley Eve trophy competition would be suspended for the season or canceled for the season. A little bit of disappointment, I know, because there was a lot of excitement around this competition, this new layout of the competition. First of all, let's talk about that particular, how you guys came up with the idea to actually have it in that way, and then we'll get to the unfortunate part of having to cancel that particular event. But first of all, I know you guys were always looking for innovative ways to do things a little different. And this when we went to that press conference, I was kind of pleased with the fact that we would now have 12 teams in there, including 2 from the first division.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking at how to stimulate football, stimulate the fans, stimulate the players, and always looking to improve, right? And competitions came to the executive council with the idea that let's include all the teams, all the Premier Division teams, which made a whole lot of sense. When you really take a step back and think about it, teams are disadvantaged by not having a competitive matches under the belt. While other teams are, going to have a whole group stage ahead of them. So, and practice matches don't really always, bring you the full experience, right, of a competitive match, fans, etc. So, it was a no-brainer in the end, and a rubber stamping by the executive council. So it was a brilliant idea coming out of the competitions committee, and you're right, everybody was excited about how this competition will play out. Having a playoff always adds some flavor to things, so having a playoff of the first division teams to see who would enter this tournament. It was a lot of excitement that has been built around it, and we were all geared up and ready to go. And then obviously, the disappointment of having to postpone a game, and then after taking stock on all of the different pieces of the puzzle, it made sense to take a pause and sort of delay to just cancel that tournament, delay the start of the season, and try and get everything in place for the 25th, which is the start of the league campaign.
Now, I know prior to the start of the cricket season, the Bermuda Cricket Board put out that they did not want, due to the rise in cases and the government's kind of cut back, they advised clubs not to have practice matches of sorts. Have we gotten to that before we get into the having to cancel games?
Yeah. Well, I mean, clubs were finishing up their sort of practice match, practice match schedule at that point. But the clubs had already had their COVID recommendations on what they should be doing for training and practice matches, which is sanitizing, sanitizing the balls and all the kit, and, players not wearing other players' bibs, all those kind of things. They already had those recommendations from us, and I think for the most part they were following this through the preseason activities. Um, so we were somewhat happy with those protocols, and thinking by any most part clubs were following them. Um, and so at this point, I think teams are still training. Whether or not they may ramp up practice matches again in this 2 weeks that we've got. So we'll have to just reach out back to them again and just make sure they stay diligent with the sort of return to play guidelines that we set them.
Let's talk a little bit about the disappointment on Sunday. I managed to see you prior to getting the notification that the first match was going to be postponed. I could see a little bit of disappointment on your face. I could hear the tone when I did check the email as you instructed before we had our conversation.
Right. Yeah.
I could see that. But having done all that is necessary to put together a schedule, get a feel, get all the things that go along with it. What people don't kind of realize when they go to a game. You're talking security, you're talking protocols, you're talking all of that's got to be in place. The disappointment of having to call it off so late in the day. Can you speak to that for just a bit?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Well, as you saw in our press release, the first match was postponed after the testing on Friday. Um, we just felt, based on the number of cases, that we should postpone that game. And then as we started to take stock and communicate with the other clubs, they were reaching out to us, we were reaching out to them, just to get an understanding of how their testing went. Um, there was a number of things that were, I guess you could say, left people uncomfortable. Um, the I mean, as we know, the rise in cases has a impact on a number of things. So you know, even getting results back is tough. We understand, the testing regime and the amount of tests that the lab is turning out. Um, yeah, it was, we were at the last minute saying, okay, well, I mean,
I think you dropped out there, Jay.
inventory, so to speak. Yeah, it was clear that we had to we had to pause those games as well.
Mm.
Did you just lose my internet connection?
Yeah, a little bit, but we got the gist of it.
All right, let me just switch.
Okay. Well, you've heard a bit about how they had to come to that, Jay. Um, what's your early thoughts?
Here we go again.
Uh,
It'd be interesting when it comes back on to see what other jurisdictions are doing, because obviously we're not the only person or any island or any organization that's going through this, especially sports in other countries changing over seasons. Um, what are some of their plans? Are we in line with some of the plans? Are we in line with some of the testing policies?
Sorry, am I back?
Especially we
yeah,
have
get
more
back.
games a week.
All right, sorry about that. And
One
apologies
second.
to all everybody online.
No problem, Jay. Yeah, finish off, Jay. Can you hear me, Jay?
Yeah. So, Mark, how much? You hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're breaking up a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like so. Mark, I was wondering how many jurisdictions who are in the same process of football seasons
It's going to be too difficult to understand that question, Jay.
multiple games a week when it comes to testing.
You didn't understand it, did you, Mark?
Yeah, I didn't get that
Yeah.
question at all.
Yeah, the internet's spotty, Jay. You're
So
going
all I was
to
having
try it
was-
again?
Yeah,
I'll try
I
to come
switched
back.
off of my Wi-Fi, went to my mobile to make it better. So might want to try that.
Okay, he's going up. Okay, so then after this Saturday, I'm sorry, after the Sunday, you guys had to make a decision. Obviously, that was the morning meeting deciding. Was it that morning meeting that you also decided to cancel the entire event, or did you wait until the Tuesday morning or Monday evening to meet with the president and the secretaries to kind of come to some understanding?
Yeah, so we had we had an emergency executive council meeting on Sunday. We had another one on Monday, and then we asked to meet with the clubs because we wanted to get a feel from them. And once we sort of tabulated all of that, it became clear that we needed to take a pause. One of the things that was discussed was whether or not we just reformat the competition for this year and just go to a straight into the knockout phase, and do a draw and just go into the knockout phase. But it still felt that there was still some protocols that we weren't quite clear on, right? So we had we had an exemption, not for the entire season. We had an exemption for the first 3 matches, first 3 match days. So anybody who saw the Gazette would have, the government gazetted information, you would see that we only had permission for the first 3 match days, because we were still unclear on how everything would work, and we agreed with youth culture and sport that we do the first 3 days and then reconvene to try and solidify everything. But that's where we are now. Really, just trying to solidify how this is going to work. With the increase in cases, it's it's tough. I'm kind of happy I don't work in a lab because I could only imagine trying to turn out 2,000 tests in a day. Yeah, so we certainly understand it. It's just that with the requirement for safety, we're not sure that we're going to be able to get the test results that we need for every match day. So that's a question mark. Like how do we do that? How do we ensure that that's even possible? And perhaps when we get through this little spike, it becomes easy. Perhaps, but right now, it's just not. We just can't see how that's going to work. And I know that the minister is working diligently with all the stakeholders to try and figure out how it will work, right? We actually had an idea, and we presented it to the clubs to try and just to make them more comfortable on the day. We were going to do rapid tests right before the match, which would mean that anybody who played in the match, we would know that they are negative 2 hours before, so they're already in match mode, so to speak. So we did provide that idea to the clubs, but again, it's just a little bit of readiness on a number of fronts, and I think that ultimately became to the right hand side. Full coming in, it's crazy. Am I back?
Good.
There's a phone call coming in just now. So
Okay, no worries.
Yeah. So so we I think we came to the right decision, which was take a pause, and let's see what we need to put in place.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick commercial break, and hopefully all the gremlins of the internet will have gone
We'll
when we
leave us
get back. We'll
alone.
take a commercial break.
All right.
Nuco is a company impressively dedicated to the production of coconut concoctions. Their motto is coconuts for life, and however that resonates, it seems to have done the trick for vegan snack lovers. Nuco uses 3 ingredients in their wraps: pure organic and GMO-free coconut meat, coconut water, and unrefined virgin coconut oil. Nuco extols them as the all-natural alternative to bread and tortillas. This month we're featuring gluten-free Nuco organic coconut wraps in a 5-pack. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Well, Mr. Weir, you said something interesting just before we went to commercial. You talked about a rapid test. I understand, during the Dudley Eve, we were just having double headers. Is this some thought, or you have to kind of get back with the clubs, back with the health ministry and all, if this was to go into the season? Because when the league season starts, you've got games east and west all over the island.
Yeah, no, the rapid test is a little kit that can be done right there and then. So the idea we had was to just do that 2 hours before kickoff. We would engage qualified persons who can do the test. So basically, you take the nasal sample, put it in a vial, shake the vial up, set it to the side for a minute, and in 5 minutes you have a result. Not ideal, and but may give a bit of comfort to players, and of course clubs, that everybody who's on the pitch was tested 2 hours ago, and maybe we can get going. So that's one of the ideas. It'll be quite a bit to manage, but it's an idea. We're not going to put any limits on the ideas, because at the end of the day we want to play football. So that's certainly one idea. Internationally, when we travel internationally, playing international competitions, we're tested the day before the match, and anybody who's positive on the day before a match isn't available for the match. But that's in a somewhat controlled environment. The players aren't off after testing good wherever. They're in a hotel. So that's why we thought 2 hours before the match, maybe that's an idea to be done. But again, we have to go back to the clubs with that. And also, obviously, we have to speak with the ministry, and obviously, health has to have some input to that idea as well. And perhaps it becomes, just a testing strategy. Maybe the players are tested PCR test once a month, and then antigen test before every match. I don't know. I'm not the not the COVID expert. We just avail ourselves to data from FIFA and CONCACAF, and speak to our counterparts throughout the region to determine what they're doing. So for example, in Jamaica, they're doing rapid tests right before the match in their Premier League, but that's the only league that they're playing. So it makes it a little easy for them, and they do it. They're at one venue, and they're able to set up a testing area, do the tests, you play, off you go until the next match day. We also had some input from USL and their scheme, and the differences of how they treat vaccinated versus unvaccinated. What testing regime they're both under. What was interesting is that everybody gets tested. It's just a different frequency, right? But they have theirs, and so there's sort of two examples of sort of testing regimes in football.
I was going to ask that, not to cut you off, but I was going to ask, are they requesting that all the players be tested, or just the unvaccinated players be tested?
Well, that's interesting as well, because according to the regulation, it's a safe key event, and that would mean that everyone in the venue either has to have a safe key, and that's either by vaccination or by testing.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, only the unvaccinated need to be tested 3 days before a match, or was it 72 hours, right?
Right.
Or within 72 hours. Doesn't have to be 3 days. So that's the current setup. To be honest, when we started our preparations, we were following the return to play guidelines, stage 4 return to play guidelines, which said that players and officials need to be tested every 28 days. But we got the information that players also had to be safe key, which we weren't aware of. And we got that information the week before. So it's I think I don't think any of these challenges are insurmountable. They just need to be worked through to get us on the field to play. I think and to be honest, we're sitting here talking about Premier and First Division, but there's under 17, there's PDL, there's expansion league, there's women's football. Are we gonna be asking for under 5s to be tested as well? This is all the stuff that we need to try and sort out, right? And we're just waiting for our meeting. I think the minister had a meeting today, so we need to circle back and find out what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm. What about the messages you're receiving from the clubs? Because obviously they're anxious because we stopped playing because of the rise of numbers. We can't play now because quite a bit of a spike in numbers, and I would imagine that some of those numbers included some of those players that would have been tested on Friday night. This weekend's numbers would have been, they'd have been mixed in that. So what are the clubs saying to the association?
I think the clubs are trying to absorb all this information, really. I think to be honest, I think the clubs are as deflated as we were, but still optimistic, right? Because to be honest, when we look at the numbers, we had 16 positives spread across 10 clubs. 10, I think it was 10.
12, 13. It would have been 13, isn't it?
What's that? Would
have been 13 if each club had to send somebody.
I'm not clear on not sure on the testing schedule.
Right.
of which clubs got tested on Friday and which were due to be tested on Monday.
Oh, okay. Right.
But you know, in comparison, the numbers weren't that bad, right? But you know, the unreadiness is still there. So we've just got to circle back, have some discussions, and circle back with everybody concerned.
Yeah, I know you guys have got all this other stuff off the field to be concerned about. Has there been any thought given to still post that Charity Shield match?
No, that match is canceled, as you saw in our release.
Yes.
We canceled that match. It just trying to reschedule it would be difficult. And you know, I hate to say it, it's a low priority in the grand scheme of things, in terms of competitions. So we took the decision that we would cancel that match.
Now, you say it's a safety event, so obviously the major players of having a football game in Bermuda are the officials. We're already low on officials. How is those discussions going with them? Because obviously not everyone is vaccinated by choice, but having to do a test 72 hours before each and every game, and then the possibility of having something like this weekend happen, not only a spike, but actually one of them. So how are those conversations going with the head of refereeing and the president of refereeing?
Well, I mean, our officials are on board. They're just as excited to get back on the pitch, and so they're on board with the testing regimes, whatever it may be. So the next piece is obviously making sure that whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, that they take the necessary precautions, so that we don't have an interruption because of an official. So they're definitely on board.
Now, when we look at the game itself, and we see when I say the game itself, and I say the higher guys, the professionals playing, everybody thinks it's that easy. But when you're in a professional environment, you've got every bit of resources available to you to have a match where we have to keep reminding ourselves that we live in an amateur environment in Bermuda, although we have professional-minded fans, some players, some officials, some officials, some coaches. In their mind, it's professional. They just think you can snap your fingers and do it. But how challenging is it in the event that we can't start on September 25th and everything is pushed back?
Yeah, I almost don't even want to speak that into existence, really. It'll be very challenging, right? And you saying that, I'm sure the chairman of competitions is pulling what little hair he has. Just you mentioning it. Our season is tight as it is in terms of matches and how we schedule them, and even being able to schedule rain dates, right? It's already tight. So the thought of not getting started on the 25th is not something I even want to consider, and I'm not even going to try and preempt the chairman of competitions and what he would do, what the competitions committee would do to adjust, right?
Right. And obviously, in the midst of all of this, we still have international competitions, international commitments that we have to fulfill as well. Just looking at how that fits into the schedule, how is the executive working through all the challenges faced with getting a team together, ensuring that everybody's in the right protocol positions and the whole bit? Because I mean, as you saw over the weekend, the Brazilian health department walked onto the field in one of, if not the biggest match in Copa, Brazil playing Argentina, and literally stopped the match.
Yeah, there's scenes where in my mind disgusting, and they had 3 days to kind of sort out that stuff, and to get to a point of a health official walking onto the field to play. For me, that's disgusting, and that doesn't bode well for football. Doesn't bode well for the Brazilian Footballers Federation or the Brazilian government, really. What were they doing for 3 days with these players? They would have had the roster even before they landed in the country. They would have known which players were coming from Venezuela, where they had just finished the other match. So, that for me is a failure of a number of things. And, I feel for everybody involved. I'm sitting there watching, I can't believe it. But from our perspective, our under-20 girls leave tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So they're off to Curacao, and we're excited to see them back in competition, and we really want to see where we sit and in women's football in our region. And then we're preparing for our senior women, and who have 2 home games and 2 away games. So we still got decisions to make about where we're going to play, whether we play in Bermuda or we go back overseas to play those home games with what's best for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of balls in the air, but we've become very accustomed to juggling those balls, and I think our staff and the committee do an extremely good job in terms of getting our international teams off to competition, and hopefully in a space where they can do well for us.
Right. And you're speaking of the under 13 team, one of the teams in the initial group, Dominica have pulled out. So we only have 2 games in this group where we would have had 3. So we played Monday and Friday. Just looking at that, obviously you want to wish the girls all the best as the leader. But looking at the group and understanding the whole layout, what do you think of the girls' chances?
Well, I always think our chances are good. I think we've made some good advancements. We just haven't been able to test them against opposition for 2 years now. So we'll find out where our girls sit in the region. We'll find out whether or not countries have kept abreast of developments, and have they kept abreast of our developments. And we'll find that out. But I think they're geared up. I think everybody wants to play. That's the one common denominator, I guess. We all just want to play. You just want to play the game.
Right. Well, I know I asked you for about half an hour, and I want to thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you want to add for the listeners out there? Because obviously there's a lot of disappointment around, and obviously there's a lot of people who are looking to point fingers at everybody. But clearly we're in a space right now where no one in this country wants to be with this pandemic. And it's going to keep rearing its ugly head if we don't sort of address any situation as it arises. I think that you guys done the right thing in taking a pause to ensure the safety of everybody involved in the sport itself.
Yeah, no, I just want to tell the players. For me, I've said it since 2010. They're the stars of the show, and we're all working on their behalf to try and get football going. So we're all unified in that goal, which is getting the game played. It's just under what conditions and how can we do it. And I just want to take time to just say to our under-20 girls, all the best, safe travels tomorrow. I can't do what was my norm, which was go to the airport and see them off inside. So that doesn't happen anymore. Hopefully, we get over COVID and I can get back to doing that. But yeah, all the best to them tomorrow.
All right. Well, folks, with all the internet issues we're having tonight, we're going to have a short version of the Island Stats Sports Show. I want to thank Mr. Wade, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Island Stats Sports Show. Thank you, Mr. Wade.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right.